let's go ahead and further implement the rest of the page objects so that you can further cement all of the knowledge that you've acquired here. So I'm going to go back to our error list and just proceed through the rest of the pages. So I'm going to come over here, and again, the student login page is complaining that the base page needs a value for its generic type. So utilizing my IDE, I'm going to pass that in, and now we need to create our object repository. So the naming convention is student login page object repository. Of course, the compiler is going to complain that the student login page object repository does not exist. So let's implement it. Again, using my IDE, I'm going to create a type, student object repository, over here on the left-hand side. That's going to bring me down here. And this type is a class, that's right. And then, of course, the compiler is complaining that we need a parameterless constructor. So again, using the IDE, I'm going to select to implement the missing members. The missing members are implemented. Our class is happy. The compiler is happy. Let's move this to its own file. Again, this moving to its own file is thanks to ReSharper, not Visual Studio IDE. I don't believe that you can do this in Visual Studio IDE to move it to its own file. Okay. Next, now that we have a concrete type passed in for the generic page object repository, we need to initialize it through our base page class. And so now we're just going to initialize the new student login page object repository and pass it the driver that it requires. And so now that's initialized and everything is satisfied. All that's left to do is to extract the elements so that they live in the appropriate class where they cannot affect the student login page. So I'm going to take these. I'm going to navigate to the student login page object repository. I'm going to paste these elements there. They're not going to be private. They should be public. Awesome. So now that they're public, of course, the compiler complains that it doesn't have a reference for all of these variables. So we need to give it a reference to all of these variables by allowing it access through the object repository keyword. Fantastic. Our class is now ready as well. Again, utilizing the object repository, we don't need to know what elements are accessible to the student login page. All we need to know is that we have an object repository and we can access all of the elements through that object repository variable that lives inside of the base page class.